Ewin, talk us through what you've uncovered here.
Thanks, Peter. Good evening. Over the recent weeks, we've managed to obtain dozens of new reports about hotel quarantine, mainly stretching over January, February and March, but also including detailed daily reports about how the system was operating since it was reopened in early April. We've also obtained confidential documents which looked at the response to the outbreaks in January and February, and also particularly a report by Infection Prevention and Control about the nebuliser man and the outbreak at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah, look, I was surprised not to see Emma Cassar apologise to the man with the nebuliser, pretty much dig down. These are government reports. They've been secret. They've not been made public. You've obviously published them, though, in the paper today. And we've had the bloke in charge, the manager of Infection Prevention and Control in the quarantine network. He has been stood down today, Mattia Bush. He's been stood down on full pay, again, I say, because he has been reported to authorities for breaking his own rules twice in the past 2 months. Is there any chance they can run anything, not even a chook raffle in this state, if this is the state of hotel quarantine at the moment in Victoria?
Well, I think one of the most concerning things is the lack of transparency. We're told a version of events when things happen in January and February. They do investigations, but these investigations never come to light. Now, two of the significant issues here are Mattia Bush, who's in charge of Infection Prevention and Control across the whole hotel quarantine network. He's the general manager. He oversees the whole network. And he himself flouted the protocols. When he was stopped by an ADF corporal leaving hotel after 3 hours and 40 minutes, the requirement is the protocol says he gets a COVID test. He said, no, I'm above those protocols, I'm not doing it. There was a second incident where they didn't follow procedure, and that was recorded as a breach, and it was recorded and reported up to authorities to CQV. So they've been aware of these breaches for the last 6 weeks. So when we went to them last night, their response was, well, our position is we cancel people, we don't take further action. Of course, that changed overnight, I think, once they saw the extent of the revelations today, the reaction to it. So they decided to take political action as a response to and stand him down. Although he stood down on full pay for a month, we don't know whether he's going to be back. We don't know what his future is. Secondly, in relation to the nebuliser report, this is very significant. The story all along has been that the man with the nebuliser, family of 3, he was the cause of the virus leaving the Holiday Inn outbreak. In fact, this report, which was finished in March, early March, so the government's had it for almost 2 months, and it says the actual virus escaped initially from down the corridor from a woman who had caught the COVID in Sri Lanka. She was tested in an open doorway. It was a lengthy swabbing that occurred. The virus escapes from her room. The report says it was previously contained in her room. It went down the corridor courtesy of a air conditioning unit. Then the report says it pulled outside the man's room, the nebuliser man's room. When he or his partner went out to get breakfast the next day, or put out some rubbish, that's when they caught the COVID. And then the COVID went into the room and then they were affected. Now, the nebuliser is found to be a contributing factor, which then blew it out of the corridor. But from reading the report, it appears that the man with the nebuliser or his partner may well not have had COVID before then. So courtesy of the swabbing technique, he actually caught the COVID. So, he'd have a...
Yeah, and look, just on that... Well, yeah, just on that, Ewan, let's not forget he had chronic asthma, ended up in intensive care, was on a ventilator, and it was pretty touch and go. And a dad of a very young child also in that room with COVID. I mean, there was exacerbating circumstances. I think it's a fairly significant legal action waiting there for him against the Victorian government, particularly because he was so openly blamed for the lockdown in Victoria by the Premier. But this is not an isolated case. I mean, there is a litany of failure. There's people breaking rules, unvaccinated people doing maintenance, lack of clarity, a lot of confusion. about PPE, what should be worn, where some are not even wearing PPE, procedures being broken in relation to vaping. I mean, if you can't use a nebuliser, you certainly can't vape in hotel quarantine. I can't understand how you can have a multi-million-dollar inquiry last year and dozens of recommendations for change, a government who keeps putting more and more bureaucrats in charge, keeps changing the ministers, although everyone at the moment, Premier Down seems to be on leave, but they have all these remediations and still, the third time round, they can't get it right.
Well, I think that's the damning part of these documents, is that this is a year after the pandemic, broke out. We're talking about, March, April, February. We're talking about, really basic structural issues, even though we've had the code inquiry. We're talking about constant confusion over red and green zones. One of the reports talks about how the government embraced a, matrix approach to PPE. In conflict with Department of Health guidance. It talks about how infection prevention and control people don't have basic training. You had the extreme example of a pathology assistant who thought it was a great idea to go and start vaping in a room, even though everyone was told her not to, because it would, propagate viral spread. It appears that nothing was done about her until we asked the question, and now we're told that she was removed from the program. Where now we have this new wave of issues, particularly in April, where a series of unvaccinated contractors have been able to go into hotels and work, and they're recorded as mandatory COVID breaches in these confidential reports. But the government sort of says, in the media, oh yeah, we're going to make sure everyone's vaccinated. But these are emerging issues. You don't really have a great confidence that the government is going to be on top of it. It's going to be transparent about it. It's going to be upfront with people about it. I mean, we need to have confidence in this system after all this period. The amount of money spent, it's a very serious
Well, I don't have
policy.
confidence, Ewan. I honestly don't have confidence. Daniel Andrews is on leave. The police minister who's supposed to be running this show is on leave. There's an acting minister in charge. You've got the head of hotel quarantine stood down today. I think it's absolutely rudderless. And you've got the mixed messages there from Emma Cassar, where her report says it wasn't the nebuliser man. She's still running out that line. Where are we on the industrial manslaughter issue here in Victoria?
I think that's still being discussed in terms of where the issues, where the action is going to take place. I don't think the government thinks that there's legal action wouldn't survive. Wouldn't be able to occur. So I think that's being done in the background. So it'll be ironic, I suppose, that the industrial manslaughter laws, which were brought in at the behest of the union movement, really by Labor, were flipped on the head and then turned around and used against the Andrews government.
All right, I'm going to reach out to Ken Phillips and see where all of that is. I know he's got complaints in there before the Industrial Relations Commissioner, but we'll come back to that one tomorrow night. Ewin Hannan, thanks for your time and good luck and well done on getting this out into the public domain.